chosen one. Did you feel it the moment they smiled at you, knowing full well they'd already sharpened the blade? Have you ever stood in a room full of people who claimed to love you and felt completely alone because you knew something was coming? What if I told you that the trap they set for your destruction was actually the altar God used for your coronation? They thought they had you. No hesitation, no doubt. In their minds, the trap was flawless. The outcome, guaranteed. They had already rehearsed your collapse, already written the script for your public humiliation, already whispered your name in rooms you'd never enter, painting you as the villain in a story you never agreed to star in. That's how confident they were. But here's the truth they didn't count on. Confidence built on lies is fragile, and the moment you refuse to play the role they cast for you, their entire stage cracked wide open. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the shock of enemies realizing the chosen one didn't stumble where they thought you would. That silence was heavy thick with their disbelief, their rage, their desperate scrambling to rewrite the ending they thought they controlled. You've been there, blamed for things you never did, accused by people you once fed, abandoned by voices that once called you family. And yet, here you stand, still breathing, still standing, still unmoved. What if your silence was never weakness, but divine warfare? Before we go deeper, I want to say this from my heart. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let that seed be planted. It returns to you tenfold. Now, if you've ever felt that sting of being underestimated, dismissed, or written off, type "I see through lies" in the comments. That one act breaks the illusion that you were ever fooled. Because here's what they don't want you to know. Your survival wasn't luck, it was prophecy. Stay with me, because before this hour is over, you'll understand why their rage is your proof of victory. Have you ever watched someone plan your destruction while looking you straight in the eye and calling it love? Have you ever felt the cold weight of betrayal before it even arrived, sensing the knife being sharpened behind the curtain of their kindness? What if I told you that the very moment they believed they had you cornered was the exact moment God positioned you to see everything? Listen closely. They didn't throw this together overnight. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't anger spilling over in a heated moment. No, this was calculated. They rehearsed the scene. They wore smiles like masks. Every kind word was a hook dipped in honey. Every gesture of concern was bait wrapped in loyalty. They didn't just plot against you, they performed for you. And here's what cuts deepest. You trusted them. You broke bread with them. You prayed with them. You defended them when others whispered doubts. You stood in the gap for people who were already digging your grave in secret. The Bible warns us in Psalm 55:12-1-4, "For it is not an enemy who taunts me, then I could bear it. It is not an adversary who deals insolently with me, then I could hide from him. But it is you, a man, my equal, my companion, my familiar friend." David knew this pain. The sting of betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the table you once shared. They studied you. They knew your wounds. They knew where you'd been broken before. They knew the exact words that would make you question yourself. They knew how to make you feel crazy for noticing what your spirit had already discerned. And so they built the stage. Perfectly lit, perfectly timed, every prop in place. They cast you as the villain in a play you didn't audition for. They whispered your name in rooms you'd never enter, shaping a narrative so twisted that even your silence became evidence against you. Their arrogance was breathtaking. They believed the trap was flawless. They believed you'd walk into it blind, stumble in confusion, and collapse under the weight of their lies. But here's where their plan shattered into dust. You didn't announce your discernment. You didn't warn them that you saw through the performance. You didn't argue. You didn't defend. You didn't give them the reaction they were counting on. You simply watched. And in that watching, you became dangerous. Because enemies can handle your anger. They can twist your pain. They can use your words against you. But your silence, your calm, your refusal to play the role they wrote for you, that terrified them. Proverbs 26-27 says it plainly, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and a stone will come back on him who starts it rolling." They dug, they rolled the stone, and now they're buried under the weight of their own scheme. You didn't escape the trap. You dismantled it with silence sharper than any sword. Every lie they told began to contradict itself. Every fake smile started to crack under scrutiny. Every carefully crafted story started tripping over its own details. And the spotlight they built to expose you, you turned it around. Now they stand in the glare, scrambling to explain what went wrong, why their perfect plan failed, how the person they underestimated became the one holding all the evidence. Let me ask you something. Why do you think their rage is so loud right now? It's not because you escaped. It's because you saw. You saw before they struck. You saw through the mask. You saw the strings they thought were invisible. And nothing enrages a deceiver more than being seen by the one they thought they could control. If this message is reading your story right now, if you feel every word landing in your chest like truth you've been carrying alone, drop 77 below. That number declares, "I see through illusions." Because here's what they'll never understand. The rope they used to bind you, you let them tie it. You let them pull it tight. You let them believe they had you trapped. And then, when the moment was right, when God said now, you didn't just break free. You exposed the hands that tied the knot. You know what confused them the most? Your silence. Not the silence of someone who's been beaten down. Not the silence of fear or shame. But the silence of someone who knows something they don't. The kind of silence that makes liars nervous. The kind of stillness that rattles cages without lifting a finger. They mistook your quiet for weakness. They thought you were too scared to speak, too broken to fight back, too defeated to defend yourself. But here's the truth they never saw coming. Your stillness was your sword. Your silence was your shield. Your patience was your camouflage. While they were running their mouths, spinning lies, creating chaos to break you down, you stood still. And in that stillness, you heard what they couldn't. The voice of God whispering strategy while they shouted accusations. You saw what they didn't. The hand of God moving pieces on a board they didn't even know existed. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still, not passive, not defeated, but positioned, rooted, unmoved by their noise. Because when you're still before God, you hear what the enemy is trying to drown out. You see through the fog they're pumping into the room. And you begin to understand this isn't about you defending yourself. This is about God defending His anointed. Do you hear me, beloved? When Daniel was thrown into that lion's den, he didn't scream. He didn't beg. He didn't try to negotiate with beasts. He stood still. Daniel 10 tells us he was left without strength, but touched by the divine. That's the paradox of chosen ones. You feel weak, yet you're being upheld by something stronger than flesh. And your enemies? They're watching, waiting for you to collapse. But instead, they see you standing, still breathing, still covered. And it drives them insane, because stillness in the face of attack isn't natural. It's supernatural. And deep down they know it. Remember the Red Sea? Exodus 14. Moses told the people, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." The Egyptians were closing in, chariots thundering, dust rising, death approaching. And God said, "Don't run, don't panic, don't fight, just stand still and watch me work." That's what you've been doing, isn't it? Standing still while they circled, staying calm while they schemed, keeping your peace while they lost theirs. And now, beloved, now the waters are parting. Not because you forced it, not because you fought with your hands, but because you trusted God enough to stay still while He split the sea. Here's the revelation that's going to shift everything for you. You thought God was delaying your deliverance. He was delaying their exposure. Let that settle in your spirit. Every day you waited in silence, evidence was piling up. Every week you held your tongue, their stories were unraveling. Every month you stood in stillness, their masks were slipping. You weren't being ignored. You were being strategically positioned. God was letting them build the case against themselves. He was letting them dig so deep they couldn't climb out. And now? Now they're buried in their own lies. Imagine an eagle perched on a cliff before it strikes. Completely still. Watching, calculating, waiting for the exact moment. That's not weakness. That's warfare. The prey below thinks it's safe, but the eagle knows the stillness is preparation for the strike. That's you, beloved. Your enemies thought your silence meant surrender. They thought your stillness meant defeat, but you were never broken. You were being sharpened in secret. And now that the moment has come, they realize too late, they weren't hunting you. You were watching them. If you've learned to be still when others panic, type, "I trust the stillness" in the comments. That confession shakes hell's confidence. Because when the chosen ones stop reacting and start responding from a place of divine rest, the enemy loses all predictability. And beloved, unpredictability in the hand of God is unstoppable. So stay with me. Because in just a moment, I'm going to show you what your silence has already destroyed and why they're absolutely terrified right now. Let me tell you what happened when the light finally turned. They thought the stage was theirs. They believed the audience would clap for them, believe their lies, swallow their version of events without question. They were so sure the spotlight would burn you that they never considered what would happen if it swung the other way. But it did. And when that light hit them, when their carefully crafted masks began to crack under the weight of truth, they didn't just stumble, they shattered. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen it. That moment when someone who spent months, maybe years, painting you as the problem, suddenly can't keep their story straight anymore. Their words start tripping over each other. Their tone shifts. Their eyes dart. The confidence they wore like armor begins to rust in real time. That's not coincidence. That's exposure. And here's what they never prepared for. You didn't have to scream. You didn't have to fight. You didn't have to defend yourself with a 10-page explanation or beg anyone to believe you. All you had to do was stand still, because the truth doesn't need your voice to roar. It roars through your presence. Think about Joseph. His brothers threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, told their father he was dead. They built an entire false narrative to cover their guilt. But years later, when famine forced them to stand before the very brother they betrayed, now second in command of Egypt, Joseph didn't curse them. He didn't rage. He simply said, "I am Joseph." 3 words. That's all it took. And their knees buckled under the weight of what they had done. Your calm is your weapon. Think about Jesus standing before Pilate, the most powerful political figure in the region, surrounded by soldiers demanding answers. And what did Jesus do? He stayed silent, not because he was afraid, not because he had nothing to say, but because his silence exposed the emptiness of their accusations. Pilate asked, "Don't you hear the testimony they're bringing against you?" And Jesus said nothing. That silence dismantled false power faster than any argument ever could. Matthew 27-14 says, Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Silence in the face of lies is not weakness. It is the kind of strength that terrifies the guilty. So when you stood there, unmoved, unbothered, unbroken, they didn't know what to do with you. They needed your panic. They fed on your tears. They required your collapse to validate their narrative. But you gave them nothing. And that nothing became everything. because every lie they told trembled in the light of your calm. Every accusation they launched bounced off the wall of your peace and landed back at their feet. Every trap they set became evidence against them, not you. You didn't win by fighting them, you won by outlasting them. And now their fury is the sound of their exposure. That rage you feel coming off them, that bitterness, that obsession with your name, it's not about you anymore, it's about what you represent. You are the living proof that their plan failed. You are the walking testimony that liars can't control someone anchored in truth. Proverbs 26:27 says it clearly. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. They dug, they rolled, and now they're buried under the weight of their own deception. What you survived, they can't erase. What you walked through, they can't rewrite. And every day you keep standing. Every moment you keep your peace. Every breath you take in freedom, it reminds them that they lost. Their trap didn't just fail, it backfired. And that, chosen one, is why they can't sleep at night. Type "it backfired" in the comments if you know the trap they set became the testimony God used to elevate you. Because what comes next, what I'm about to show you, will prove that their rage isn't random, it's prophetic. Let me tell you something that's going to crack this whole thing wide open. They didn't fail because their plan was weak. They failed because they were fighting someone who doesn't exist anymore. Think about it. Every insult they threw at you, it was aimed at the person you used to be. Every lie they spread, it was written for the version of you that tolerated disrespect in the name of peace. Every trap they set, it was designed for the one who apologized for things you never did, who carried guilt that was never yours to hold. They built a cage for a ghost. And while they were busy setting up that cage, measuring it, perfecting it, locking the doors, you had already walked out of that tomb. You had already been remade. You had already become someone they couldn't recognize, because God had done what only He could do. He raised you from the dead, not physically, spiritually. Romans 8:11 says it plainly. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. That's not poetry. That's power. That's the force they underestimated when they thought they could predict your next move based on who you were 5 years ago. They studied your weaknesses from a decade back. They weaponized your trauma like it was fresh. They rehearsed arguments against a version of you that God had already buried. But here's what they missed. When God buries something, it doesn't come back. 2 Corinthians 5:17 declares, "If anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come." That word, passed away, it means gone, finished, extinct. So while they were mocking the version God already laid to rest, you were rising in silence. While they celebrated what they thought was your funeral, you were being resurrected in secret. And now they're standing there, confused, furious, unraveled, because the person they prepared to destroy never showed up to the fight. You showed up as someone else entirely, someone sharper, someone wiser, someone who learned to hear God's voice over the noise of accusers, someone who stopped defending themselves to people who were never interested in the truth. Do you feel that shift in your chest right now? That's not just emotion, that's recognition. That's your spirit saying, yes, I know exactly what this means. They expected the old reactions, the panic, the pleading, the scrambling for approval. Instead, you gave them something they had no script for: stillness backed by the Spirit of the living God. And that terrified them. Because a person remade by God doesn't operate by human logic. You don't fall for the same bait. You don't flinch at the same threats. You don't break under the same pressure. You've been upgraded, and they're still using outdated weapons. So here's my question for you, chosen one. If you know the old, you died quietly, and God raised someone stronger in your place, type the word resurrected in the comments right now. Heaven recognizes that word, and so will every enemy who thought they buried you for good. Because the truth is, they didn't bury you. They just made room for your resurrection. You want to know the part that breaks them? It's not that you survived, it's that you were supposed to. While they were busy building cages, God was building character. While they were sharpening knives, heaven was sharpening you. And the entire time they thought they were writing your obituary, God was actually writing your testimony. Let me take you somewhere sacred for a moment. Genesis 50-20. Joseph, standing face to face with the very brothers who threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and walked away like he never existed. They're trembling now, waiting for revenge, waiting for the rage they know they deserve. And Joseph, after years of false accusations, imprisonment, abandonment, he looks at them and says, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." Do you hear that? You meant it, not you tried, not you attempted. You meant it. You planned it. You executed it with precision. But God meant something else entirely. That's the paradox, chosen one. The trap they set for your destruction became the altar God used for your preparation. Psalm 124 says it plainly, "The snare is snapped and you are free." Not because you broke it, but because it broke itself the moment divine timing said, "Enough." Here's what they'll never admit. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was warfare. Your restraint wasn't fear. It was the rope of divine justice quietly tightening around every lie they told, every scheme they planted, every word they twisted in the dark. Heaven doesn't need your defense. Heaven uses exposure as education. And while you stood there accused, slandered, misunderstood, God was allowing them to build the very courtroom of their own conviction. You became the silent evidence that grace wins. Not loud, not violent, not bitter, just present, still standing when you should have collapsed, still steady when you should have shattered, still unmoved when the entire storm was designed to sweep you off your feet. That's what terrifies them now. Because if God protected you through that, if you made it through the pit, the prison, the false accusations, the public betrayal, then maybe, just maybe, you were never the victim they needed you to be. Maybe you were the witness God positioned to expose the whole operation. Let me say this slowly, so it sinks all the way in. You don't need revenge when the truth itself has your back. You don't need to defend your name when God is already defending your destiny. You don't need to prove you were right when your survival is the proof. They built the trap. God turned it into a testimony. They wrote the script for your ending. God rewrote it into your elevation. And now they're forced to watch you rise not in bitterness, but in blessing. And that, chosen one, is the justice they can never escape. So here's the question burning in your chest right now. If God turned that betrayal into breakthrough, what else is he about to flip in your favor? Stay close, because what I'm about to show you next will prove that every closed door, every stolen opportunity, every person who walked away was never rejection. It was redirection. So let me ask you something that might sting a little. How many times have you sat in the ashes of betrayal, wondering if God even saw what they did to you? How many nights did you replay the moment they turned their backs, the moment they whispered your name like a curse, the moment they built that stage and expected you to fall? You felt forgotten. You felt abandoned. You wondered if maybe, just maybe, you deserved it. But here's what the enemy never told you. The stage they built for your humiliation was always meant to become your coronation. Listen to me closely. In the book of Esther, chapter 7, there's a moment that will wreck you if you let it sink in. Haman built a gallows 75 feet high. 75 feet. That's taller than a 7-story building. He built it specifically to hang Mordecai, the very man who had done nothing but stand in integrity. Haman wanted a public spectacle. He wanted the whole city to watch a righteous man swing. But God flipped the script. By the end of that chapter, Haman was the one hanging on the gallows he built. The trap became his tomb. The stage became his judgment. And beloved, that's exactly what's happening to your enemies right now. They thought they were building your grave, but God was building your platform. They thought they were writing your obituary, But God was scripting your testimony. Every lie they told, every rumor they spread, every alliance they formed against you, it's all coming back on their own heads like a boomerang dipped in fire. You didn't have to fight. You didn't have to defend. You just had to stand still and let God be God. And now the atmosphere has shifted. People are starting to see the truth. The mask is slipping. The performance is crumbling. And you, dear chosen one, you're standing in the light they tried to steal from you. Job 42:10 says this, "The Lord restored to Job twice as much as he had before." Twice as much. Not the same, not barely enough to get by. Double. God doesn't just bring you back to where you were. He elevates you past where they tried to bury you. The ashes you sat in, they're glittering with oil now. The tears you cried in secret, they've become seeds watering a harvest they'll never touch. The pain they inflicted, it's turning into power they can't comprehend. This is divine compensation. This is the justice of a God who doesn't play fair with your enemies. He plays in your favor. So right here, right now, I need you to do something. If you're ready to receive what's been stolen, if you're ready for double, if you're ready to walk into the fullness of what God has been holding for you, type this in the comments. I receive divine compensation. Say it out loud if you have to, because the story is flipping while you watch. Remember that spotlight they set up? The one they thought would expose your shame. It's still shining. Only now, it's revealing God's glory in you, and they can't turn it off. So let me leave you with this. What if everything they did to break you was actually the blueprint God used to build you? I need you to remember something before you close this video and walk back into your life. You are not crazy for feeling what you felt. You are not paranoid for seeing what you saw. You are not alone in this battle. God saw every trap. He documented every lie. He recorded every tear. And not a single moment of your pain has been wasted. The silence you walked through, it was preparation. The betrayal you survived, it was promotion in disguise. The rage they carry now, it's proof that you were never the victim they tried to make you. You are the chosen one who saw through the illusion and walked out free. And beloved, there is a community here that sees you. We're not just viewers. We're a family. We're warriors. We're intercessors standing in the gap for one another. If you need prayer right now, drop a comment below. Tell us what you're walking through. You don't have to carry this alone. We will stand with you. We will pray with you. And we will believe with you that God is turning this around. If this message stirred something in your spirit, share it. Send it to someone who's been sitting in silence, wondering if they'll ever be vindicated. Remind them they're not forgotten. Remind them their story isn't over. And if this is your first time here, welcome home. Hit that subscribe button, because this isn't just content. This is a movement of people who refuse to stay down when the enemy says it's over. Now, before you go, I want to pray over you. Close your eyes if you can. Let these words settle deep. Father, in the name of Jesus, I speak over every person hearing this right now. I speak peace over the chaos they've endured. I speak clarity over the confusion that's tried to cloud their vision. I speak vindication over the lies that were spoken against them. Lord, you see them. You know their name. You know their struggle. And you have not forgotten. I pray that you would open doors no man can shut. I pray that you would restore what the enemy stole, double portion, overflowing measure, pressed down and running over. Let their latter days be greater than their former. Let their comeback be so undeniable that even their enemies have to admit God is with them. Protect their mind, guard their heart, strengthen their faith, and let them walk into this next season with confidence, knowing that if you are for them, no weapon formed against them will prosper. We declare victory. We declare breakthrough. We declare that the trap has been dismantled and the stage has been set for their elevation. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with your time, your heart, your story. You are seen, you are loved, and you are not alone. Now go walk in that truth. Type Amen if you received that prayer. Let's flood this comment section with faith.